You gotta just chill out, man.
Pittsburgh Steeler fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is Steel Curtain Network editor Dave Schofield coming at you shortly after 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Where else would you rather be, Steelers fans? And with me as always, except when he's not, is my big brother Rich, Big Bro Scho. How's it going?
Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
I just realized something.
What?
Were you clean shaven last week?
Yeah, why?
I was just curious because it just stood out to me for the first time.
I shave. I have a whole shaving pattern worked out, and my pattern is always the same for when I show up here for the show. So, you know.
Gotcha. I just, for some reason, it just stood out to me a little bit.
I told
more.
you, weird lighting that I have going on here now because I got a couple bulbs out across the room that I got to get replaced.
Maybe that was, I don't know, but I just like, it was good to see. It was good to see my big bro.
Now, see, you didn't even get my yo ho ho and a bottle of rum. What I was going for there, did you?
Sure.
Why? Who says that?
Well, there's I think of it's I think more of yo ho ho and a bottle brass monkey.
No, yeah, no. What you're supposed to think of when you hear that phrase is Pirates. And football season's over, so now we got to start thinking baseball and the Pirates. So how about that?
Jeff Hartman talked about that a little bit on Monday's Let's Ride when he had Zachary Smith on there and talked about, Smitty, and was talking about, they have the rotation that should be a team that could do something in the postseason. It's just no. So we're not going to bother about going into the Pirates. I mean, the Penguins
but
are
now the fact that football was 100%, season was 100% over, then it was, just the chance to make a reference. I was just having a little fun with it. I'm in a really good mood today.
What is it? Pitchers and catchers report here before you know it. But the more important thing, I don't know if it's that important, but back to what we're here to talk about. Actually, the 2024 NFL season is officially over. It is now over. The Super Bowl has concluded. The Lombardi Trophy is in the state of Pennsylvania. It's just on the wrong end.
Yeah, but as Pittsburgh dad said, though, now Pittsburgh can rule Pennsylvania because Philly fans will destroy the eastern half of the state. So Pittsburgh rules.
There you go. But my question is this. Did you watch?
No, I did not. I was going to ask folks in the live chat. Anybody else totally not watch? I did not. Kyle and I watched. Kyle had never seen this movie and wanted to watch it. I had seen it before and wanted to then watch it with him so we could geek out. Kyle and I watched Interstellar.
Oh, I love that movie. That's a great movie.
He had never seen it, wanted to watch it, and because he was geeking out about it, I knew he'd geek out about the same things that I would. And so we instead watched that. Warren came to the basement and watched the football game.
Gotcha. Well,
but Kyle and I did not.
I had it on, but I didn't do my normal setup in my downstairs where I watch all the Steelers games, everything else. I thought, you know what, I might just watch it in my room in my comfy chair. Nope, didn't do that. Ended up just having it on in the living room while I did end up having to make some Super Bowl type food. And that was because my daughter's boyfriend was here. It was his birthday. They were supposed to be going out to dinner with his family. And then his mother was sick and he was going to have nothing for his birthday. And I'm like, you know what? I'll throw together some Super Bowl food and make sure you at least have something for your birthday. That's the only reason I did that.
Hold on.
The game was on. So that was it.
Now, hold on. So I did not watch the game. However, what you had was bowl food.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing super about that game.
Yeah, the game. Well, I'll be honest with you. If it would have been 24-0 Chiefs at halftime, I'd have turned it off. I mean, I didn't keep the halftime show on or anything, but I at least had the game on just because I would just not as much as I was really paying attention. I was more monitoring things. Next thing you know, I'm messaging Jeff because I know he's having a good time with his family. I said, all right, I've got the first 2 articles for you ready for tomorrow. Already got them good. You don't have to do any work tonight. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Worry about stuff tomorrow. And I worked. After I finished making food, I worked while the game was on. So and I had the game on simply because it was the last chance to have NFL football for a long time.
All right, we're not going to drag. I'm not going to let you. We're not going to drag this out.
We are not.
I am going to make a quick turn and reference to the Steelers around the Super Bowl, and then we're going to go away from it. Okay.
Okay.
Here's the deal. Former assistant GM for Andy Weidel, get to work. You and Omar. Why? Yeah. Because I just watched. I say watched. I did not. I went back and looked at some stats and a few highlights. That game was won on both sides of the football in the trenches by the Philadelphia.
My goodness.
They dominated the line of scrimmage, both sides of the ball. That's what the Steelers have been working towards. Keep working towards it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't think the Eagles blitzed.
At all. None. Zero blitzes.
I saw the stat that the zero. You know what? But here's the thing. You had the guys up front that could get the job done with the pass rush, and you had guys on the back end that were taking care of business back there. It was just, It was well done across the entire field. And to me, there's some things you can take with that. I'm going to do an article about it, about, some things that the Steelers could get there, but they'd have to have a number of things happen, and they'd all have to happen in order for the Steelers to be there. I've been churning this up in my mind for an article that I should get there.
I have to say, JJ said it worked because all four up front are monsters. Not so much the way I put it in some of the clips I was watching was the Eagles 4 were good enough to beat the Chiefs 5.
Yeah.
When the Chiefs were on offense. The 4 could beat 5. When you can have 4 beat 5 consistently, you win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. Yep. But here was the thing. You could have an amazing 4. And I mean, even with the Steelers, like, well, the Steelers have 5. That's when they're in base. More often than not, it's a passing play. They're going to have 4. The Steelers could have a really dominant 4. The problem is what happened when they played the Chiefs? Catch, throw, done.
Yeah.
They didn't have the rest of the defense
Correct.
to complement it, to let the 4 do the work.
Correct.
So there's a lot of
which then was the blueprint for the end of the year for teams against the Steelers to have really no issue, was to just
and also
get it thrown
you
up
look
because the Steelers couldn't hold up in coverage.
Yeah, and you got and let's just say this. I don't know if they couldn't, but man, they were playing really far off. Yeah,
yes.
They were playing so far off and everything else. And if it's like the reports that a lot of people are saying out there that want to talk about the Steelers, that say that you know exactly what they're going to do on defense, you know exactly where you can go with the ball. If you know what's coming, you can make that quick decision to go and do that there. Speaking of a quick decision and the defense and the secondary, the Steelers announced a new defensive backs coach, which is actually an old defensive backs coach, and I can't even remember the name right now. Gerald
Brown?
No, Grady Brown is who it was.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's gone. And which is very interesting.
I know that's the problem when we put things out there with both names on a tweet, then I get the names all mixed up.
I knew it was an A. Gerald Alexander. The issue is this, and this could be frustrating, and this is something we can talk about further down the road because this is still kind of new for me. I want to take it in. If all the Steelers were going to do to make their big changes with their coaching staff was not bring back the coaches who had expiring contracts and keep everything else the same, have you ever considered that some of your best coaches were the ones with expiring contracts? Now, maybe Grady Brown, even though he was getting, I know he helped with the Senior Bowl last year, coach team, something like that. Had at least one defensive coordinator interview, things of that nature. Maybe it wasn't, maybe it was time to have something different there. I don't know. But from everything that I had heard about him was how he was such an up and comer. Same with Aaron Curry that moved on to the Jets. So making a change, oh yeah, we got to change up the coaches. We're just not going to bring back most of the ones whose contracts are expired. Well, if those are the ones that need to stay, then you really have a problem. And right now, it almost kind of feels that way. But we're not going to take a negative spin like that this week. You want to know why? The season is over. And yes, it's really easy to focus on how everything ended with the Steelers. But we decided to sum up the season. Now that the season is over, we're going to look at our 5 favorite Steelers games of last year. And I tell you, looking over those games to try to come up with my list, it actually was kind of difficult to keep it to just 5.
Well, there was narrowing down that had to be done.
Yeah, and it was like, you know what? This was pretty cool. That was a lot of fun. And you know what? This is what I want to do this offseason. My oldest son says that he would love to learn more about football, but yet why you have to focus so much on the Steelers games? I've got them all on DVR. So guess what? I'm going to watch Steelers games, taped games with my son so I could explain the game to him even more. And I don't have to worry about, I can't miss this. I have to try to break this down to be able to talk about it more on the post-game show and things like that in the moment, that I can go back and do that. So that's on my to-do list this offseason, that I want to go back and, you know what? Forget the losses. I'm just going to focus on the wins. And who needs negativity in their life when there's 10 opportunities for some positivity out there?
Who needs negativity in their life when you can have 100% control over it?
Yes, you can have control over it. I can pick which ones I'm going to do. So we're going to do our top 5 list. We're going to each do our own. How we normally do these kind of things in the off season. And for those of you who are asking if we can get through this in time, we will get back to our 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk when we come at the end of the show, when we get this done, before we do a big question. So Rich, you ready to do this? Going to start with 5?
Yes, start with 5. Ready?
Give me your number 5 game for this season.
Actually, number 5 may have been the easiest one for me to pick and slot. Okay? So to me, this was an obvious choice to not only pick this game, but it was to go in at number 5. Why? Because I'm going to say it first. So number 1 was Atlanta. Because it was the first game of the season, we had a lot of unanswered questions, and the Steelers got a victory.
That is an interesting one, and I specifically did not put it on my list.
Oh, I can understand why you wouldn't put it on the list, but to me, it was like
offensive touchdowns. And you know what? It was the only game where that happened, and they won. And I kind of am saving that one. So I completely get that one. That, you start the season. I mean, think about that. How late was it in the week when we realized that Russell Wilson wasn't playing, that he re-injured the calf?
Yeah,
wasn't that on like Friday?
Thursday or Friday?
Thursday or Friday. I can't even remember. It was so long ago. But yeah, they were even the beginning of that week, they were preparing with Russell Wilson. And then Justin Fields has to come in.
To me as well, you start the season, you you go on the road, start the season, change the quarterback, you get a victory. It started things off the right way for me. So that's why I put it on my list at number 5.
That's a great reason. And the thing is, it's all about the reasoning here. All right. Yeah. Ready for my number 5?
Yes. Dave, what do you got down for number 5?
Rather than starting the season, I went with starting the season on the road. I went with starting the second half of the season on the road. I went coming out of the bye week in Washington, that 1-point win, that 1 target to Mike Williams for a touchdown, after the Steelers are down to take the lead and they fumble with the 1 and they still have to make a stop and get it back. And I'm like, I knew they were going to score. I just had that feeling. I didn't know it was going to take a play like that. And I for some reason, that game, I just had the confidence they were going to get it done. And it just, the way it played out, especially remember, they were dominating early and they did the fake punt. Beautiful design, terrible execution. I was just reminded of that because
not terrible execution. The execution was great until the very last piece that
Yes.
needed to happen.
Yeah. So, because today at SealCareerNetwork.com, when I'm doing my exit interviews articles, it was Joey Porter Jr. and James Pierre, and I had to say really good with special teams, except when it came to catching a fake punt.
Hey, just so you know, James Pierre didn't catch that ball.
Yep, he didn't catch that ball. You know why? Because there's Pierre.
Yeah, 'cause it's Pierre.
But that one, just because it was the close game, quality opponent. Remember, that was not a game that you thought might be an easier one for the Steelers before the season started. The time it rolled around, they were underdogs, even though they had a good record because of Washington, what they did, and how Washington even built on and improved from that after that loss to the Steelers. That was like the one game that Washington had that was close that they didn't win. I'd have to go back and look at their stuff more specifically. So I really like that one. That one
Okay.
squeezed in as number 5 for me.
Okay.
So why don't we go ahead? Let's go ahead and hit number 4 before we take a break. Oh yeah, we got time. Let's go.
Yep. Number 4. The win over the New York Jets. Mainly because I just was glad to see us, crush Aaron Rodgers.
Okay. Well, I have a little bit to say about that. But first, I'm going to tell you that my number 4 was the win over the New York Jets.
I had a few. That was one I thought that was one for sure that I thought we would both have on there.
And I think it's an appropriate place to put it. Just because.
Yeah, the Jets were not a fantastic team, but it was earlier in the season and
They
the
were
matchup
favored
against
in
Rodgers. And the matchup against Rodgers and all that ridiculousness. And not just that, but the score was 37-15.
Yeah, and because see, that was the whole. No, they've got Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, everyone was in love with the Jets, and they come in favored against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Was that when the Sunday night or Monday night? That was Sunday night. That was Sunday night, prime Sunday Night Football. And it was just. It was just good stuff. I mean, my goodness. Didn't the Steelers? I mean, didn't they score?
I'm trying to remember. Was it Russ's first game?
That was
Or
Russ's
second game?
first. No, I'm pretty sure that was his first one.
Right, it was. It was the first
because Justin Fields played against the Raiders. Which I was torn between the Commanders and the Raiders with where I was going to go with number 5, but in that Jets game. Remember, they were still down at halftime. They were down 15-13 at halftime. But it was the Beanie Bishop interception that got the Steelers a touchdown right before the half.
Yep.
To bring it to within 15-13. And so you're like, okay, there you go. We can see, come out of the half, see what happens. And they held the Jets scoreless in the second half while putting up 24 points.
Yeah, and that was a game where what I liked about that game was both offensive. Like that was a game where we truly felt there was adjustments being made on both sides of the football at the half that really worked in the second half.
Yeah, because see, that was when I remember I got frustrated that the Steelers punted and gave the ball back to the Jets with 3 minutes left in the half. And I'm like, the Jets get to start the second half. Seriously, that's what you're going to do. Everything else, and they get the interception. They go touchdown, and then the second half goes field goal, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Yeah,
I mean they scored on their last 5 possessions, and 4 of them were touchdowns.
Other things that stood out in that game, over 100 yards from Najee, over 100 yards for George Pickens.
Yeah,
that was.
Yep.
And like I said, it's always fun to kick Aaron Rodgers' butt. So
yeah,
there you go.
It really was. So I think that was a good choice.
So not only did we both have that game picked, but we both had it slotted in the same spot.
We both had it slotted in the same spot. So
that's probably the only place that's going to happen, where we both pick the same game and slotted in the same spot.
Probably, because I think I have a feeling why you're going to pick the games that are left, and you probably understand why I'm going to pick the games
Actually, no,
that
you
I have
don't.
left.
No, you're not going to. No, you won't have my next one.
Okay, I might not. Because I might have already said. Well, you know what? Let's keep them waiting. Let's go ahead and take our break.
Okay.
And then we'll come back, finish up this list. Looks like hopefully we'll have our time to do some 5 minutes of non-Steelers talk. We'll get a big question again this week. So if you're with us here live, we're not going anywhere. If you're with us here on audio, stick around. We'll be right back after this message.
Relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry, relax, don't worry, no rush, what's the hurry? Relax, don't worry, don't worry,
Relax, don't worry. You know what? Because it's the offseason. There's not anything to worry about for a long time. Yes, I know we'd like to get more out of our Pittsburgh Steelers, but you know what? It's less than a month away, Rich. Less than a month from now, we'll be talking about the legal tampering period because it will have kicked off the day before. 4 weeks from now when we're together.
But it won't. It's like, oh wow, it's so close. But honestly, it won't get here fast enough.
It won't get here fast enough. And that's when some of that stuff really happened. All right, so we're talking about our 5 favorite Steelers games so far. You have at 5 at Atlanta, 4 versus the Jets. I have 5 at Washington, 4 versus the Jets. Rich, what do you have for your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is at Washington.
At Washington.
Now, what bumped it for me up to 3? You've already brought up. And we've talked about all the stuff about the game and that important stuff, which is part of why it's on my list. But it gets bumped to number 3 for me for personal reasons.
Okay.
So, my college roommate, best man at my wedding, is a huge Washington football fan. And he and I, every time the Steelers and the team in Washington plays, we talk back and forth very respectfully, not tons of smack talk, just talking about, talking football. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe a smidge of smack talk, but not too much. And we knew this was going to be a great game going in. And we both just had a feeling that it was going to be extremely close.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be extremely close. And we talked about the game some then afterwards. And, Chaji, I know you're not listening, but you should be.
Yeah. Shout out to Coach Wilson.
Yep. So it was that personal touch then with him that brought it up my list. So
see something. Yeah. I also, one other thing about that game I want to say is I remember going on the post-game show. I'm pretty sure it was the post-game show where I said, gee, I'm glad that one's over because now I can root for Washington to win every game for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
It's a likable team. It's a likable team.
Very likable team. Felt the same way, which is funny because, Coach Wilson, he felt the same way about the Steelers. He's like, they're a very likable team. Very different with him being a fan of that. Now, if he was a fan of the purple team, there'd be a lot more going on.
Yeah.
Knocking between us. But,
Yeah. Well, so I'll go ahead and drop my number 3, and it might be another one of those that you have a chance to talk about later.
We'll see.
Would not surprise me. But my number 3 is actually, gotta love division games. This was the Steelers' win over the Browns in Pittsburgh after they had lost to the Browns 2 weeks before that. Granted, they had the mini bye there. They lost in the snowstorm on the short week Thursday night when going to Cleveland is a terrible time to go do that on a short week because they win a whole lot of games there. And they came back, they took care of business.
Yep.
The game wasn't really all that close. It was nice just to see the Steelers, dominate on an opponent that had just beaten them 2 weeks prior. So for that reason, that game was a whole lot of fun. And that was the last win they had. And that was the last time they actually led for the season with the conclusion of that game. But I mean, they were up 13-7 and the Browns scored in the fourth quarter. 27-7 going into the fourth quarter. That was just a good dominating performance the Steelers didn't have. I mean, I think they only. It's not like they put up a ton of yards on that one. I think they had. My goodness, I think they had maybe 150 passing yards, 120 rushing yards, but the Browns just couldn't do anything. The Steelers took the ball away. It was just a good, fun home win after they had lost.
Yeah.
You can talk about that later.
I'm going to hold off on a few more of the details I have for it. So,
yep. So if you like to, you can go to your number 2 then.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go to my number 2. My number 2 was the game the week before that game, was the Steelers at the Bengals. Because that was a great win to me, because that was the Bengals kind of coming out of the offensive slump they kind of had been in, and doing what they needed to offensively, and the Steelers matching that and then some offensively. Like, one of those where it's like, man, come on, Steelers, I'd like to see more offense like that all year. So, that's why I went there. Although that one, it's a little weird. Russell Wilson threw for over 400 yards in that game.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a 100-yard rusher. We didn't have a 100-yard receiver.
Nope.
That was complete team offense from the Steelers there.
Yeah.
And that was a game that had a lot of Steeler fans excited. To me,
And it should have.
Yeah, it was for good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, looking here, Wilson ended, it was 29 to 38 for 414 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick.
Mm-hmm. And that pick was that early, freakish pick 6.
Yep.
Should have probably been a penalty. It wasn't. It was just one of those crazy plays that Cincinnati benefited from. And yeah.
But then other things I look at in that game was there were 10 different Steelers caught passes in that game.
Yeah.
Okay? And here was the yardage. 74, 68, 55, 54, 43, 37, 29, 23, 21, 10.
Yep.
So you had 10 guys catch passes, and the least amount of yards gained by any of them was 10 yards, with Mount Washington with 1 catch for 10 yards.
Yeah.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of good, especially offensively, coming out of that game.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say that my number 2 pick was at Cincinnati.
Oh, we even matched that one up. Cool.
We matched that one up as well. That one, because you look at that game of what it should have meant. And now I know we've got the reports of after that game, the whole Russell Wilson thing, but I'm kind of glad that since then those reports have kind of been debunked. Or maybe not debunked, highly challenged. That's probably the better way.
Not even highly challenged. Actually, it was Jeff's story or whatever that I read on kind of how being careful, and you got to read things for what they're really worth.
Yeah.
That was a great article.
Yeah.
Jeff deserves some serious credit for that article. That to me was maybe not full content, but for the full cerebral piece to everything, might be one of the best articles Jeff's ever written, and Jeff writes some really good articles. But that one, just like, I got done reading that article from Jeff and it was just like, oh, that was good. But yeah, I get what you're saying too. Then there was the whole stuff that's come out after that game, and some people also look at that game and they say, well, look at all the points the Steelers gave up in that game. Don't forget you got the freakish pick 6 in there,
They went basically into a prevent defense.
Yep.
With a few minutes left in the third quarter. I mean,
and when you do that against an offense that's as good as Cincinnati, you're going to give up some points late, which they did, but we were good enough to win. So,
yeah.
Ta-da.
Yep. And I mean, yeah. So, I mean, what if they pulled it to within 6 points, with 2.40 something to go. So yeah, they really the Steelers let that get closer to what it should have been. But anyway, one thing I was going to say about that whole thing with the report about Russell Wilson and all that stuff afterwards. Once again, what's Smitty talking on Let's Ride. If you all didn't catch that, please go back and catch that on our audio only platform where Jeff had his Monday morning conversation. Obviously, that was on Monday, and that he said, if you're someone who goes and breaks down film, you can see that Russell Wilson was changing plays at the line after that game. It didn't really seem like there was a big difference from that game to the other game, other than the philosophy. Well, he didn't say this, but I'll say this, other than the dump off philosophy. That was a heavy dump off philosophy against the Bengals. So if you wanted to talk about that, maybe that was it. But really, it didn't really match the story to say how all that stuff's going to go. But the thing with the Bengals game, the reason it's frustrating is that was the one time, that was the game that gave me a whole lot of hope. Yes, the Steelers gave up a lot of points against the number one passing offense in the NFL. But I'm like, yes, they were going up against a poor defense. And there was a lot of people that were saying, oh, who cares if Russell Wilson threw for 400 yards? That was against the Bengals defense. Well, you know what? Those same national people were praising Lamar Jackson for throwing for 300 yards against the Bengals defense. So I that's one that did make sense to me. But that was supposed to be the game that showed if the Steelers had a team that they went up against that was a shootout team, that they could put up points too. And what's so frustrating is they put up 27 against the Browns because they didn't need to score any more than that to beat the Browns. And then after that game, they never scored over 17 the rest of the season.
Nope.
That's what was so frustrating about it.
Felt like suddenly the offense went super conservative.
Yes, and they were playing really good opponents. But you know what? Go for it and lose the game.
Now wait a minute. Hold on. What did you say? What did you say there? I want to make sure you said the Steelers didn't score. You said it. They did. No, you're right.
Next week against the Browns. That's right. They scored 27.
27, and then that was
they
never
scored 17 more than 17 after that.
Yep.
Because those were the last two wins for the season. And that's what was really frustrating. Because that game that was the one that really gave me some hope going forward, that the Steelers could maybe squeeze out one or two of those final four games that, beat Cincinnati again and squeeze out one of those other three, and you'd be in good shape. But they didn't. It's almost like them going all out and putting up all those points almost exposed them to what you had to do to make sure they didn't do that. I'm not going to break down how that goes. It's all hypothetical for that, but it was just yuck. But the other reason I had that game up as number 2 and almost put it as number 1 is that was a game when I needed a big pick-me-up, just like you did, because that game was the day after we lost our big sister.
Yeah.
So that was where stuff was going on in life. We had lost her mom earlier, 2 months earlier. And that was rough. And the Steelers putting up those kind of points was almost like, well, finally something's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't continue.
Something goes our way.
Yeah. But in the moment, it was just, it was like, I was like, because I wasn't going to do the post-game show after that game, because if the Steelers lost that game, I just couldn't do it. But it was one of those things that was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So that was also for me, not just because of the points and everything, but because of what was going on life as well. So Rich, I think I know what your number 1 is. I thought I knew what your number 1 was going to be from the very beginning.
Of course, it's got to be. Number 1 has to be Steelers over the Browns at home for multiple reasons. It was the first game I got to go to this season. It was the first of my 2 games to go to in person. Went with Kyle. We had a blast. You can never write off a game when you get a big man interception. It's it just, there's a lot of good stuff. And we've talked about some of that with the game. The personal touch to being there with Kyle, getting to enjoy that. Game played at 1:00 on Sunday when God intended football to be played. All that played very much into it, and it's always fun to beat the Browns.
Yeah.
The Bengals were almost my number one. That game was almost my number one, partly because I was going to put they're up there. It was up there high, but almost number one in tribute to Marky D, because the Bengals suck.
Yes.
So.
But
ended up going with the Browns because honestly, Browns are the Browns.
Well, but here's the thing. This is why it comes down to it. My number one pick isn't even on your list.
I know.
My number one pick is anytime you're there in person to watch the Steelers beat the Ravens.
Oh, yeah.
That is something.
I figured that was going to be your number one, honestly,
Yeah.
which is why I left it off my list totally.
Well, I mean, was I frustrated during that game that they weren't putting the ball in the touchdown zone? Yes, that was frustrating. And I was like, oh, I really was frustrated. But not only was that the only game I was in attendance for this year, I was holding out for a home playoff game, which of course that didn't happen. And
I don't teach you.
yeah, well, I mean, and then whenever the time of the game, because my other game was week 18, and then based on the time of the game, that's why I said, you know what, I'm going to send Kyle and Warren, let them go watch the game. So that was the only one I was at, and that was the first game that I attended in person with my wife since 2017. Because just, having young kids, now that our oldest kid is old enough to take care of everybody, we were able to go to a game, 1:00 game when God intended NFL football to be played. It was, and the thing is, my wife picked the game not based on opponent. I didn't even tell her who they were playing. She picked it based on the date. She wanted to go in November, and it was the best weather for a football game I had ever experienced. It was, I mean, I think I wore long sleeves under my jersey, didn't need a jacket, didn't need sunscreen, wasn't sweating, wasn't freezing. It was just a really great experience. And to see that Peyton Wilson interception and be like, is that, and I'm like, that's not what happened there. They're going to have to overturn this. I didn't just see what it looks like just happened. And then just being able to say, to see that and have it play out, to have them, to watch Justin Tucker miss 2 field goals coming at me.
That was cool.
For the Steelers to come out, for Justin Fields to slide too early, which if he gets that first down there, they still might have had to have punted the ball at the very end. But instead they come out and hand it off and get the first down, and then in victory formation, it was a great experience, even though it didn't have a touchdown. And I was not going to have 2 games that were 18 points and no touchdowns on my list, so that's why I had that one on and not Atlanta. And Gavin Anthony wants to know if my wife was always a Steelers fan. The answer is no, and it's not because she didn't like the Steelers. It's because she wasn't really that much of a football fan, but because it's important to me, it's important to her. And I will say this, she screams louder than me at games, and my wife is not loud. She is so much fun to go to a game to. And John has asked.
The answer to that is no. Our moms went to a bunch of games where they lost.
Actually, no. Our mom was undefeated as well. Our mother was undefeated. She went to 2 different games with my dad and I.
Incorrect.
What's that?
Incorrect.
What, did she go to one back when you were kids?
Back when we were little kids, and Dad would get the tickets from.
Yeah. See, I don't remember
that where I got to go see Terry Bradshaw play. He and Mom went to several, and they did not win all of them. So so our mom was not undefeated.
She was undefeated with me. Yeah.
With you,
but,
yes.
Yeah, but my wife is undefeated in games. I mean, I'm trying to think of the ones we were at 2 different.
I
Week
can't even
17 games against Cleveland that were, or no, one was even the week 17 against the Bengals, the one where Le'Veon Bell got hurt and they had to bring in Ben Tate for the playoff game. But every time she was there, but more importantly, we've even been to games together because we've been to some non-Steelers games. Every game she's been at where the Ravens played, the Ravens have lost. So that included Ben Roethlisberger's rookie season, the day after Christmas.
Now, my
Yeah.
Mrs. Scho, my wife only attends preseason games. Part of that is she tells me she doesn't feel like she wants to take a regular season ticket away from somebody else.
Yeah.
But I couldn't even tell you what her record is. I know when she's gone with me, I think they've won every one, but I can't remember because there's been a couple where she and Alex have gone in the preseason. Don't know if they've done, but your wife has a very good record.
Yes, she does. Yes, she
So
does.
see,
I have to
so
be-
see, if you and her would have just sucked it up and gone to that game on week 18, just think of what could have happened.
I didn't want to ruin it. She's not going to a night game. Are you crazy?
Oh, you could have made
she-
you could have made a long weekend, gone to the game, spent the night in Pittsburgh. Like you could have had this whole great thing.
Dude,
You ruined it.
I'll be honest with you. I got to work on the going across the pond, taking my wife to that game.
That one she'd probably go for. So
Yeah.
all right.
I'm
Hey,
from-
Dave.
Yeah.
Good
Wait.
good list.
We,
Good list.
But let's recap it. But before we do, I want to bring up the super chat. SteelDog88, $5 at the tip jar. Thank you very much. He says, one of my favorite games was the loss to Dallas. Even though the defense blew it, it showed me Justin Fields had the ability to lead a team back. Which I get that because the week before he had the chance to lead the team back, and that's when you had wasn't it an early snap to him or something?
Yeah.
One of those things. So yeah. I tell you what, Steelers fans, go back and recap some of these games. You'll find more joy with the team. And it's really nice to have some joy. Now, what you also want to look at is like, okay, things didn't finish up, but let's find things to build on for next year. So, all right, let's recap our list real quick, Rich.
Yep.
You went 5 down to 1. You went at Atlanta versus the New York Jets, at Washington, at Cincinnati, and home versus Cleveland.
Yep.
Where I went at Washington, home versus the New York Jets, home versus Cleveland, at Cincinnati, and home versus the Ravens. All right. That was a lot of fun.
Yes. Now let's do 5 minutes of non-Steelers.
5 minutes of
I'm excited.
non-Steelers football talk. This might be a topic we've kind of done in the past, but it's the first one of the year, unless you had one too.
No, I didn't
Okay.
have one because I forgot we were going to do this.
Yeah. All right. So I got to set it to 5 minutes. Okay. I'm not going to do it. Yes, we could talk about the good. Yes, we could talk about the bad. I'm going food. You ready? Just because this is a little bit, I'm pretty sure we've hit a little bit of this, even if it wasn't the exact topic. French fries, best and worst. Okay. Good French fries, bad French fries. What's your favorite French fries, bro? Did I ask you too quick?
She asked me too quick because what happened right now is I do have favorites, but just for a moment I've blanked. Crud.
So,
I have a favorite place, and for the life of me right now I can't remember
well,
it.
here, I'll just Steel Dog 88 threw out 5 guys. What's interesting about
They're good.
5 guys is they're very similar to what we would get from the Rotary Club at the Garrett County Fair, right?
A little bit. I love it. Five Guys. Their salt pepper mix that they kind of use and put on the fries, very good, very very good. You know what? I'm gonna. You know what? I'm not sure this is 100%, but for me, it's what I am going to go with. It's been quite a long time since I've had them,
Okay.
but for me, it is tough to beat Thrashers on the boardwalk in Ocean City.
Oh, okay. I don't know that I've ever had those.
Oh,
Okay.
they're good.
Afton Ford throws out their garlic fries from Red Robin. I don't even need garlic. I just put their seasoning on their steak fries. But their fries are good. But what makes their fries the best is, I'm sorry,
Oh,
Red
sorry.
Robin.
Duh. Okay, sorry, I got mine. I
Well,
remember.
let me finish this. Red Robin has the best ranch that you can have. You take their fries and dip them in a ranch with their seasoning. They are really, really good. What were you gonna say, Rich?
Sorry, Renee. I forgot. I was like, wait a minute. We have a place that we've come up with and recently, and they're awesome and this and that. Okay, the very best one for us, especially now. First of all, yes, thank you, Steel Dog. I'm never passing Thrashers if I'm in Ocean City. I just don't get to Ocean City super often.
Yeah.
But for me, the best ones around here. My former employer for one summer down the street, Arrowhead Market in Delhi on Deep Creek Lake, makes the best loaded bacon cheddar ranch fries I've ever had in my life. They are beyond just good French fries. You can eat them as a meal. Like there are times where I will walk in there and say, and just order, and they're huge. They come in a regular, square takeout container, and that thing is just jam packed with fries, plenty of cheese, plenty of bacon, and plenty of ranch, and they are wonderful.
Well, I'm bummed because they don't have many more, but I used to really like the buffalo chicken cheese fries from Lido's Pizza. If you have, I don't know if there's any Lido's close to the Pittsburgh area. It started in College Park, Maryland.
Hold on,
But
I got to know, and I
they
will
don't have
bring
them
up
anymore.
real quick.
They don't do them anymore.
This one's for you, Uncle Mike, and this one's for you up there, sis, because this used to be our favorite. Okay, Friendlies used to serve what they called spicy spuds.
Okay.
They were waffle cut fries loaded with a really, I call it was a good nacho cheese, a cheese with a bit of bite to it, and scallions.
Yeah.
And entire, and those also were just like, we didn't have a Friendlies here. That was so. This was back, especially when I was in college. When I was in college, and I get down to see Elise and Mike on the weekends, every other weekend, and the first thing we would do is go to Friendlies, and I would have the spicy spuds. And not many years after, they quit serving them, and I was so mad.
Yeah, well, see, when it comes to fast food places, because I know some people are listening to them, sometimes it depends on the restaurant. For example, a lot of people like Chick-fil-A waffle fries. I do as well. They're best with Chick-fil-A sauce. That's what makes them so good. But we have 2 Chick-fil-A's in our town, and they're owned by the same person, and one has good fries and one doesn't. Okay?
Kathy coming after me again this week. Come on, Kathy.
The damn burst on Rich's fries memories. But I'll tell you some places. What about some places where you don't like their fries? I'm going to throw one out there. You ready? People might not like this. Arby's. I don't like crinkle cut fries, and I don't really like curly fries. And that's your 2 options. So it's not that theirs are bad. It's just that both styles, I don't like them. I know it just went off. You have any place in particular that you don't really like their fries?
Don't care for. Okay. And I don't know if it was just, well, no, because I've been to a couple of them. Wendy's. Do not care for Wendy's fries. To me, they're dry. They're too dry.
You know what? I can see that. I mean, because honestly, they've changed their fries several times. So I can
And
get
every
that.
time
I know
they
some
change,
people get
I
them
know.
and
they've changed them, and I go back and I try them when they've changed them every time. But every time, if you hit, and it's been, this has been different Wendy's, hundreds of miles apart, and I still don't like the fries because I always think they come out dry. I feel like I have to wash them down. And
to me, it's also what you put on your fries. And you, as you know, I know we're done here, but I don't like ketchup. Ketchup's gross. I don't do ketchup.
You're an
I
idiot.
think the best thing to have with fries is ranch, but it's not the only thing because some people like McDonald's fries. Other people don't like McDonald's fries. They've got to stay warm. But the biggest thing with me that makes me where I can enjoy McDonald's fries is it's a different sauce that I do there that I don't do anywhere else. And that's their hot mustard sauce. Kind of like at Chick-fil-A when I do the Chick-fil-A sauce with their waffle fries.
A lot of places
That's
I like
what makes them good.
I will say this real quick. A lot of places I like ketchup. McDonald's, I do not like ketchup. McDonald's has either got to be barbecue or sweet and sour.
Gotcha. So, and like I said, the ranch. If you've never been to a Red Robin, their ranch, they make their own ranch, and it's really good. and so much so that I order as much as I can, and then I use it for other stuff at home whenever, because usually I get it to go, and then use their ranch for other things. All right, we went over 5 minutes a little bit. Rich, you ready for the big question?
Let's do it. Big question.
Well, guess what? The big question is one that we don't really have.
We don't have to answer because we've already answered.
But so we're going to ask you all. I'm going to get ready. Just about ready to put it out there. Rich's answer was versus the Cleveland Browns at home. My answer was versus the Baltimore Ravens in that victory at home. And that is, what is your favorite game of the Steelers from the 2024 season? Some people might write why. I'm probably not going to read why. I'm just going to say which games they are, just kind of get a feel for what everyone has. I put that out there. People already have them. They were ready to go. They were ready to do it. For the number ones, we got Jamie Carlo going Commanders. I almost said Jamie Carlo going Commando. That just would have been wrong.
That would have been very wrong.
I almost stumbled at that one. John S. says the Ratbirds. I'm assuming the first matchup, not the last.
By the way, if you'd have actually said that, I'd have had to report you to HR.
Yeah.
Are you HR? I know you're payroll. Are you HR?
Yeah, I guess technically I'm part of HR. So yeah, that's funny. After Forward has Commanders. That was a fun one. DT Show says versus Ravens at home. I was there. Yep.
Not you. I was there. DT Show was there.
Just I know.
I mean, you were there too.
Yes.
But you know.
Yep. So Steel Dog 88 says Commanders. George T says that first Bengals game. I was really close to putting that one as number one. If I wouldn't have been at the Ravens game, I wouldn't have picked it as number one, of course. But yeah.
Same here with the Browns.
Yep.
So.
But I still thought that was a good game, that Browns game. Brent Howell said at Cincy. Where are we?
What?
Ruben Stone said the Colts. I don't know if he's trolling. You know, the loss to the Colts. Yeah, that would. Okay. John Walter said the Jets at home, of course. That was a good one. TD Tom Dessenberger says the Ravens the first game. Okay.
Skip that.
Yep.
No, do not put it up because I'll go off.
Isaac Aguilera said the Raiders because he was there. That one I almost had. That one and the Chargers was another one that I almost had on the list as well. Because that Chargers game, because you know that the Chargers that was their first loss of the season. That was the Steelers home opener. That was a good one. Okay, Gavin Anthony says at the Bengals. Jen
Italia.
Thank you. Said the Bengals game. Sherry Richards. God, Sherry got it here. Jets. Anytime watching Rodgers lose. That was good. We didn't get into the whole Aaron Rodgers rumors and the Deshaun. Did you hear the Deshaun Elliott thing today?
I did. That was awesome.
That he wasn't doing that. Steeler Chick 46 said Chargers. That was a good one. I bet you if you asked our brother-in-law, I don't know if he would have said Chargers or Jets. Our brother-in-law Jamie, because he was at both of those games. We got to keep sending him the games if they're going to keep winning ones like that. So there was some. This is a good one. John S. said he already answered.
All right, but we're going to put this because I liked what he put there.
He said the Broncos was sneaky good, where the defense.
You're right.
Dominated.
That was a sneaky good game.
Yeah. Rob King says at Cincinnati. Yeah, that's a really good one, and I like this one as well. John Walter says I enjoyed all their wins. I'm a simple guy.
Yeah. They win. It's a good game.
Unfortunately, we didn't get to enjoy much over the last month plus of the season was the problem because of the lack of wins there. But that's why I encourage you, go back and look at some of those things. Honestly, sometimes even if you do it now before free agency, it might give you a different outlook on stuff with all of that. So,
well, at least for it's hard as Steeler fans because I say Steeler fans as fans in general. If things, you have a tendency to remember what's most fresh in your mind, and what's most fresh in our minds is what
recency
we'll call
bias.
The I don't know if I want to call it a crumble, but just that. I don't want to call it a crumble or a choke job, but it was just a not getting the job done at the end of the year. It's hard to not just dwell on that. I get why people want to dwell on that because that's what was closest to us. It's what we were that's the taste that was left in our mouths. But I like Dave's point of going back and watching some of his other games because there was some good stuff. And if the Steelers can build on that good stuff, they'll be all right moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing Philly win the Super Bowl the way they did, you can see that the Steelers weren't in their class to win in Philadelphia where they hadn't won since 60 whatever. All right, so that was one, wasn't surprising. In Baltimore, that first one, my goodness, the Steelers were driving in the fumble and everything. They had their opportunity to grab a hold of that game, and they didn't. And I think that's the one that really started them in the wrong direction. They had the chance to grab that game. They didn't. They weren't prepared on a short week for the Super Bowl champs. And then the one that, to me, that was the most gut-wrenching was you had all the time off and you had that 2-point loss to Cincinnati in a game where you didn't even seem like you tried to score for the first 3 quarters.
Yeah.
So I get why those are what's fresh in your mind and that has you down. And then that just doesn't lead into the postseason in a good way at all. But when you think of a couple things, if one of those games ends up differently, how does that change everything else? Woulda, coulda, shoulda. But there were other times where the Steelers, that Cincinnati game, I still say that Baltimore game, that Cleveland game, some of those games in there really are something that you can go back and say, let's see what the Steelers can build on for 2025. And speaking of building on things for 2025, we're not going anywhere here at Steel Curtain Network. You've got our full lineup with stuff coming at you. I don't know if you all caught that we now have Black and Gold Blueprint Friday mornings at 11 o'clock with Roy Countryman and Rob. I really like that show, so I'm really glad that's part of our network now. There's some stuff going on with Steel City Insider. Not sure if they're back this week or not, but there some things happening there. That's just the way it is. Got some other things coming up here around the corner. As we fill out our lineup for the off season, before you know we're going to be at free agency, and then before you know it, it's going to be the draft. It's going to seem like forever, and then at the same time when it's going on, you're going to say, "I can't believe it's already this." So
it's both. It drags and it goes quickly. Both.
Yep. Yep. So it's funny, and even Brent Howe said, remember, even that Philly game, they were driving to tie it up with Philly, and then the fumble. So that's the thing. Great teams got to find a way to win no matter what. And the Steelers weren't a great team. So that's so what do they have to do? They got to work on getting better for next season. Also, make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. Rich mentioned the article by Jeff. I've got a number of things out there. Great article from KT Smith today about how Philly built their team and how the Steelers can parallel that. And it's the new look site. It's just it's so much better. The new look site
is so much better.
Yeah, come in, log in to where it's easy to comment and comment on stuff. It's a whole lot of fun. Make sure you check that out. All right, Rich, what do you have to say here to close us out tonight?
I'm going to do good for you.
Wait.
Okay.
One thing. Quick. Because John S. said, I may send a topic for the unpopular opinion pod. Bring it on. Yes, I want other people's unpopular opinions so I can talk about them for that podcast that now runs on Sunday morning.
All right. Going short, sweet. Going to keep Bad happy. Keeping us under an hour here because this closing thought for me this week is going to be short, sweet, and simple. The simplicity is this. I loved being here tonight. I was in an extremely good mood today, and as always, Dave, love coming in here and talk Steeler football with you. And we're going to be right back here Tuesday night. Not sure if anything might happen with the Steelers between now and then. There could be zero happen in the next week, and I'm still going to enjoy being here with you and all you fans out there next Tuesday night. Can't wait.
You gotta just chill out, man.
Can't wait.